everyone, and welcome back. We're doing another deep dive today, and going beyond the headlines, to explore some really gripping stories about families. We'll be looking at cases that captivated the nation.
Yeah.
The McStay family vanishing in 2010,
Right.
the Watts family murders in 2018, and the controversial conviction of Adnan Syed for the 1999 murder of Heyman Lee.
Yeah.
A case made famous by the podcast Serial.
Right.
And these cases, as tragic as they are, really reveal a lot about the hidden pressures families face and what happens when those pressures explode.
What's fascinating to me about these cases is that they often involve seemingly ordinary people
Right.
who commit unthinkable acts. And it makes you wonder what turns a seemingly normal person into someone capable of such horror, especially within their own family.
That's what we're here to unpack.
Yeah.
So let's start with the McStays.
Okay.
Picture this. It's February 2010. This family of four, Joseph and Summer McStay, and their little boys, Gianni and Joseph Jr., they just vanish from their home in Fallbrook, California.
Wow.
No sign of a struggle, no forced entry, no ransom note, nothing.
It's interesting the lack of evidence really fueled all those wild theories.
Yeah.
Remember, their SUV was found near the Mexican border.
Right.
And there was even that grainy security footage that maybe possibly showed a family resembling the McStays crossing into Mexico.
Yeah.
So for a while, everyone thought they'd willingly left the country.
I remember following that case and thinking maybe they're starting a new life somewhere.
Yeah.
But then 4 years later, the rug gets pulled out from under everyone.
Right.
Their remains are found in a shallow grave in the Mojave Desert.
Oh, wow.
Blunt force trauma.
Oh, jeez.
Talk about a gut punch.
Yeah, and the investigation takes another turn.
Right.
They eventually arrest Joseph McStay's business associate, Charles Chase, Merritt.
Right.
The motive.
Money.
Money, prosecutors argued that financial disputes led to the murders.
Okay, so on the surface, this seems like another sad case of greed gone wrong.
Right.
But if we look closer, there might be more to it.
Yeah.
This is where the idea of the family annihilator comes into play, right?
Exactly. Now, it's a chilling term, but it's crucial to understand this pattern.
Okay.
Family annihilators are typically men,
Okay.
often the father or stepfather, who kill their entire family.
Wow.
And while each case is different, there are some common motivations.
Like what? I have to admit, I can't even begin to understand what would drive someone to do something like this.
Well, one common motive is this warped sense of control and ownership.
Mm-hmm.
The family annihilator sees their family as an extension of themselves, almost like possessions.
Okay.
And when they feel like they're losing control, maybe due to financial problems, relationship issues, or even something like a perceived betrayal, they lash out in the most extreme way imaginable.
So, in the McStay case, even if the motive was primarily financial, could there have been this underlying need for control mixed in? Especially if there were simmering resentments or power struggles within the family that we just don't know about.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
And this brings us to another common motivation,
Okay.
a twisted logic of eliminating suffering.
Okay.
Sometimes the perpetrator genuinely believes they're sparing their family from a future of pain or hardship.
Wow.
They might see themselves as a protector, even as their actions are undeniably horrific.
That's a really hard concept to wrap your head around.
It is.
It's like their logic gets completely distorted by whatever pressures they're facing.
Exactly. And let's not forget the role of external pressures.
Right.
We live in a society that often places immense pressure on families to achieve a certain level of success, financial stability, and outward perfection.
Yeah.
When those expectations clash with reality, it can create a breeding ground for resentment, despair, and in extreme cases, violence.
I think that's a really important point. We often focus on the individual actors in these tragedies,
Yeah.
but we have to consider the broader societal forces at play as well.
Absolutely. And this brings us to another case that, while different in many ways, also offers a glimpse into the dark side of family dynamics and societal pressures.
Okay.
The Watts family murders.
Yeah. You mentioned this one hit close to home for you.
It did.
I remember the news breaking, and it was just so shocking. Chris Watts, the father, was initially all over the news, playing the part of the grieving husband, begging for his family's return. But the whole time, he knew exactly what he had done.
It was a masterclass in deception.
Yeah.
And what made it even more disturbing was the stark contrast between the image the Watts family projected on social media and the horrifying reality of their situation.
Right.
Their Facebook and Instagram feeds were filled with pictures of happy family vacations, birthday parties, declarations of love.
Right, and that's what made it so unsettling.
Yeah.
They had this seemingly perfect family living in a nice neighborhood, active in their community. Yeah.
But beneath the surface, there were cracks, deep fissures that eventually led to an unimaginable act of violence.
And this is where the role of social media becomes particularly interesting.
Yeah.
We've talked about societal pressures, but social media adds another layer to that.
Right.
It creates this pressure to present a curated version of ourselves, to project an image of success and happiness, even if that's not the reality.
You know, I've definitely felt that pressure myself. It's so easy to get caught up in comparing your life to the carefully curated highlight reels you see online. And it's especially true for families. You know, there's this pressure to showcase the perfect family vacation, the perfectly behaved kids, the picture-perfect home. But what happens when that pressure becomes too much? When the reality behind the facade starts to crumble?
That's a great question. And in the Watts case, we see a chilling example of what can happen when the pressure to maintain that perfect image collides with a deeply troubled reality.
Right.
Behind the smiling photos, Chris and Shanann's marriage was falling apart.
Wow.
He was having an affair and wanted out.
Oh, gee. But he also felt trapped by the life they had built, the image they had projected.
It's almost as if he felt like a prisoner of his own carefully constructed narrative.
Exactly. And this brings us back to the idea of control.
Yeah.
Chris Watts' desire for a new life, coupled with his inability to reconcile that desire with the image he had created, may have contributed to his desperate act of violence.
Right.
It's a tragic reminder that the pressure to maintain a certain facade can have devastating consequences.
And it highlights the darker side of social media, how it can amplify existing pressures and create a breeding ground for insecurity comparison and a distorted sense of reality.
Absolutely. Now, while the McStay and Watts cases share some common threads, they also differ in significant ways, and this is where it gets really interesting. The next case, we'll be diving into the murder of Hae Min Lee, and the conviction of Adnan Syed adds another layer to our understanding of family dynamics, justice, and the role of media in shaping public perception.
This is the case that Serial brought to light, right? The one that had everyone debating Adnan's guilt or innocence for years.
That's the one. And it's a case that raises some really important questions about our justice system, the reliability of eyewitness testimony, and the power of media to influence the course of justice.
I'm ready to dig in.
Yeah.
But first, why don't we give our listeners a moment to reflect? What are your initial thoughts on these cases? Do any specific details stand out to you? What are your gut reactions to the idea of the family annihilator?
It's easy to get lost in the darkness of these cases as we delve deeper, you know.
Right.
But amidst the tragedy, there's also this story of how communities grapple with the aftermath and how they try to make sense of the unthinkable.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It can't be easy for a community to process something like this.
I know.
It's not just the immediate family that's affected, right?
Yeah.
It ripples outwards, impacting friends, neighbors, schools, everyone.
Absolutely. And each community responds in its own way.
Yeah.
Take the Watts case, for instance. After the murders, the town of Frederick, Colorado was understandably devastated. People were grappling with shock, grief, anger, and a profound sense of loss.
I can only imagine it's the kind of event that shakes a community to its core, you know,
Yeah.
makes you question everything you thought you knew about the people around you.
Exactly. And in the wake of such trauma, one of the most common responses is an increased demand for mental health services.
Oh, yeah.
People need help processing their emotions, understanding what happened, and finding ways to heal.
That makes perfect sense. Trauma, and this doesn't just disappear, right?
Right.
It needs to be addressed, processed, and worked through.
Right. And it's not just about individual healing, it's about community healing.
Yeah.
Support groups, counseling services, and community forums can provide a safe space for people to come together, share their experiences, and find solace in knowing they're not alone in their grief and confusion.
Yeah, that sense of shared experience can be so powerful, especially when dealing with something as complex and traumatic as, the murder of a family. It's like the community is collectively trying to make sense of the senseless.
Precisely. And schools often play a crucial role in the healing process as well.
Oh, interesting.
After the McStay family murders, many schools in the Fallbrook area implemented programs to educate students about mental health, domestic violence, and the importance of seeking help if they or someone they know is struggling.
It's so important to reach young people early on and give them the tools they need to navigate these difficult topics.
Yeah.
These tragedies can be especially confusing and frightening for kids who might not fully understand what happened or why.
Absolutely. And these school programs often extend beyond the classroom, involving parents, teachers, and community leaders in a collaborative effort to create a safer and more supportive environment for everyone.
So it's about recognizing that the impact of these tragedies goes far beyond the immediate victims and taking a holistic approach to healing and prevention.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes the most powerful responses come from within the community itself.
Mm.
Remember, after the Watts murders, residents in Frederick organized all sorts of events and fundraisers to support families facing financial hardship or mental health challenges. It was a beautiful example of neighbors helping neighbors in a time of profound need.
It's those acts of kindness, that sense of shared humanity that can really help a community start to heal and rebuild. And, it's not just about immediate relief efforts. We often see these tragedies become catalysts for long-term positive change.
You're absolutely right. In many cases, communities use these painful experiences as an impetus to advocate for policy changes, promote mental health awareness, and build stronger support systems for families.
Yeah.
It's about taking something horrific and using it as fuel to create a better future.
It's like they're saying we can't bring back the victims, but we can honor their memory by working to prevent this from happening again.
Exactly. Now, while communities are grappling with the aftermath, the media plays a crucial role in shaping public perception and understanding of these events. And that role comes with a huge responsibility.
Yeah, that's a great point. The way these tragedies are reported can have a significant impact on the healing process, on the victims' families, and on the community as a whole.
Absolutely. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
The media needs to inform the public without sensationalizing the story or exploiting the victim's pain.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot between reporting the facts accurately and sensitively while also providing context, exploring the complexities of the situation, and avoiding harmful stereotypes.
I couldn't agree more. It's also crucial to avoid generalizations.
Yeah.
These tragedies can happen anywhere to anyone, regardless of socioeconomic status, race, or religion. Painting these events as typical of a particular group or community only perpetuates harmful stereotypes and prevents us from understanding the true nature of these complex issues.
Yeah, it's about recognizing the shared humanity and all of this, understanding that these tragedies could happen to anyone, and focusing on the systemic issues that contribute to them.
Exactly. And that's where the Hamin Lee and Adnan Syed case comes into play. While it doesn't fit the exact mold of the McStay or Watts cases, it raises important questions about the justice system, the media, and the potential for wrongful convictions. Remember, this case gained national attention thanks to the podcast Serial, which meticulously re-examined the evidence and raised serious doubts about Adnan's guilt.
It was a groundbreaking podcast that had everyone playing armchair detective.
Yeah.
I remember listening to it and thinking, how could this happen? How could someone be convicted on such flimsy evidence?
Serial was incredibly impactful. It sparked a national conversation about the limitations of eyewitness testimony, the potential for bias in investigations, and the power of media to influence public opinion, and even the course of justice.
And it didn't just generate discussion, right?
Right.
It led to concrete action. Serial ultimately helped pave the way for Adnan's release from prison in 2022 after serving over 2 decades for a crime many believe he didn't commit.
It's a testament to the power of investigative journalism and how it can bring about real change now, while Adnan's conviction was vacated. The investigation into Hay's murder remains open. It's a case that continues to fascinate and frustrate, and it serves as a powerful reminder that the pursuit of justice is often a long and winding road.
It also highlights the crucial role media can play in holding those in power accountable and shining a light on potential injustices within the system.
Absolutely. The Hamin Lee and Adnan Syed case is a powerful reminder that we can't always take things at face value.
Yeah.
We need to be critical thinkers to question assumptions and to advocate for a more just and equitable legal system for everyone.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've explored some truly heartbreaking stories, but we've also seen incredible examples of resilience, community support, and the power of media to both harm and heal. So as we move forward, what are some key takeaways you think our listeners should consider?
I think the most important takeaway is that these tragedies are not isolated incidents. They are often the culmination of a complex web of factors, including mental health issues, relationship problems, financial stress, and societal pressures.
Right. It's rarely just one thing.
It's rarely one thing.
But a combination of stressors that can push someone to the breaking point And while we can't always predict or prevent these tragedies from happening, we can work to create a more supportive and compassionate world where people feel less alone in their struggles.
Exactly. And that starts with increasing awareness, breaking down the stigma surrounding mental health, and advocating for better access to mental health services.
Yeah, it's about creating a culture where people feel comfortable seeking help without fear of judgment or shame.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's about strengthening our support systems, fostering a sense of belonging and connection within our communities, and being proactive in offering help to those who might be struggling.
So it's a multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
It's about individual awareness, community action, and systemic change. It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in preventing these tragedies and supporting those who have been affected by them.
Well said. And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a thought.
Okay.
What can you do in your own life to promote mental health awareness, to offer support to those around you, and to contribute to building a more compassionate and resilient community? We'll be back after a short break to delve into some more specific actions you can take.
You know, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by all this and things like, what can I possibly do to make a difference?
Right.
But even small acts of kindness and awareness can have a ripple effect.
I completely agree. We don't need to have all the answers or become mental health professionals overnight.
Right.
It's about taking small but meaningful steps within our own spheres of influence.
So what are some tangible things that our listeners can do
Sure.
to promote mental health awareness and support those around them?
Well, one of the simplest yet most powerful things you can do is check in with your friends and family.
Yeah.
Ask them how they're really doing.
Yeah.
And listen without judgment. Sometimes just knowing someone cares enough to ask can make a world of difference.
I love that it's such a simple act,
It is.
but it can be so powerful. It's about creating that space for open and honest conversations and letting people know that they're not alone in their struggles.
Exactly. And if someone does open up to you about their mental health, resist the urge to offer unsolicited advice or minimize their feelings.
Yeah.
Instead, validate their experience and encourage them to seek professional help if needed.
That's a really important point. We're not therapists, and it's not our job to fix people.
Right.
But we can be supportive listeners, a source of comfort and encouragement.
Absolutely. And another thing we can do is educate ourselves about mental health.
Okay.
There are so many resources available online in libraries and through community organizations.
Yeah.
Learning about the different types of mental health conditions, the symptoms, and the treatment options can help us better understand what our loved ones might be going through and how we can best support them.
It's about breaking down those misconceptions and stereotypes that surround mental health, replacing fear and judgment with understanding and compassion.
Precisely. And speaking of breaking down stereotypes, it's crucial to be mindful of the language we use.
Right.
Words have power, and using terms like crazy or psycho to describe someone with a mental illness only perpetuates stigma and shame.
It's about treating mental health with the same seriousness and respect as we would any other health condition.
Right. And remember, advocating for mental health isn't just about supporting individuals.
Yeah.
It's about pushing for systemic change.
Okay.
We need to demand better access to affordable mental health services, support mental health research, and encourage our elected officials to prioritize mental health policies.
So it's about using our voices to advocate for change at a broader level. It's
Right.
about making our communities more inclusive and supportive of everyone, regardless of their mental health status.
Exactly. And, sometimes the most impactful actions are the ones that happen right in our own communities.
Yeah.
Volunteering at a local mental health organization, donating to a mental health charity, or even just sharing information about mental health resources on social media.
Right.
These things can make a real difference.
It's about taking that awareness and channeling it into action,
Yeah,
becoming a part of the solution.
I think that's a great way to put it. And as we conclude this deep dive into these tragic cases, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of hope.
Yeah.
While these stories are undeniably heartbreaking, they also remind us of the power of human connection, resilience, and the unwavering belief in a better future.
It's about recognizing that even amidst the darkness, there are always glimmers of light, moments of kindness, and individuals working tirelessly to make the world a more compassionate and supportive place.
And remember, you are not alone. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please reach out for help. There are resources available, and there is hope for healing and recovery.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a heavy but important conversation, and we appreciate you listening. We hope this episode has challenged you to think differently about mental health, to be more aware of the struggles people face, and to consider the ways you can contribute to creating a more compassionate and supportive world. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep believing in the power of human connection.